IKEA has a dark secret? You can grow something inside you if you swallow a seed? There's a parasite that can eat my tongue? The world is a creepy place. And I should know. I've just been researching some facts that'll give you the ick faster than a curly hair in your club sandwich. In 2002, two identical twin brothers in Finland died in separate accidents within 2 hours. And get this, both were hit by trucks while riding their bikes on the same road only 1.5 kilometers apart. The accidents had no connections whatsoever. Authorities were left scratching their heads, and honestly, who wouldn't be? The first tragedy was heartbreaking enough, but when the second one happened, people couldn't help but wonder if something bigger was at play. It's the kind of thing that really makes you stop and think. Crucifixions were a brutal punishment. Are. In Sudan, a case was reported in 1996 where a sentence of hanging followed by crucifixion had been ordered by a judge in North Darfur. This was to punish armed robbers and show that ancient traditions are still very much alive. Reports from 2014 stated that men had been crucified in Syria during the conflict there. In fact, it's been used in various wars across recent history. And you can apparently still be crucified after death in Saudi Arabia. You're decapitated first, only for the head to be reattached. YouTube star Rubsy isn't known for flirting with the paranormal, but his viewers witnessed something truly scary one fateful night. He decided to livestream his playthrough of the horror game Outlast 2, but to heighten the scares, he chose a location rumored to have a bit of a history. The ominous atmosphere began even before the game. Footage showed Rubsy visibly shaken, his eyes darting around the room, goosebumps erupting across his arms. Then, things took a terrifying turn. A door behind him inexplicably creaked open. Before anyone could react, it slammed shut with a force that seemed to defy physics. Rubsy abruptly ended the stream and fled the apartment, leaving his viewers terrified. Part man, part goat. This urban legend from Maryland is the stuff of nightmares. And if you think a mutated goat person isn't scary, then how about the fact that he's carrying an axe? In a Spider-Man style twist, it was revealed that the goat man could have been a scientist who mixed his DNA with that of a local farm animal. The less said about that, the better. It may sound far-fetched, but stories about goat people have been told since the times of ancient Greece. So, one of them's gotta be true, right? You'd think predicting the future would be a skill reserved for fortune tellers, but Edgar Allan Poe might have pulled it off through his writing. In 1838, Poe wrote The Narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym, a novel about shipwrecked sailors who end up eating one of their own crew members to survive. That sounds pretty dark, right? But what's even creepier is that 46 years later, a real-life shipwreck had almost the exact same story. The crew of the Mignonette was stranded at sea and resorted to cannibalism, just like Poe described. One of the victims was even named Richard Parker, the same name as the character in Poe's story. Imagine an idealized community that descends into bloodshed and cannibalism. The island of Nazio in western Siberia was suddenly populated with political prisoners from the Soviet Union in 1933. Why? This was the idea of Stalin's men, who figured shipping their opponents out to start a new life was a good plan. They could learn to live independently and provide crops for Mother Russia. After a matter of weeks, however, it was clear that people weren't coping with the harsh landscape, and they were eating each other. Thousands died or went missing. In March 2002, a regular evening TV broadcast in heavily censored China turned out to be anything but boring. TV screens across the country went dark, followed by flashes of banners proclaiming Falun Dafa is good. In a daring act of defiance, the outlawed spiritual group Falun Gong hijacked the state television signal in Changchun, China for over 50 minutes. The act of defiance featured footage of Li Hongzhi, the group's spiritual leader, and unfolded against a backdrop of escalating tension. China's annual parliament was in session, and just the day before, foreign supporters of Falun Gong had staged a brief demonstration in Tiananmen Square. In the aftermath, police arrested everyone involved in the hijacking. Hundreds of Falun Gong practitioners were detained, with some receiving prison sentences as long as 20 years. Molly is an affectionate but also creepy presence in Abbeville, Alabama. This extremely tall woman catches hold of you before hugging you and letting out a chilling scream. I've heard of tough love, but this is ridiculous. The legend of Hugging Molly was great for parents who wanted to keep their kids off the streets at night. In June 2007, WWE lost one of its greats when wrestler Chris Benoit shocked the world with a horrifying crime. But what's even creepier is what happened before the news broke. About 14 hours before police arrived at Benoit's home, someone altered his Wikipedia page, saying he wouldn't be at an upcoming WWE event because of his wife Nancy's death. The edit came from an IP address in Stamford, Connecticut, the location of WWE's headquarters. Then it was updated again from Australia. The anonymous editor claimed they had just seen internet rumors, calling it all an enormous coincidence. IKEA is one of the go-to places for flat pack furniture. But who makes the furniture? For a while, the products at IKEA were put together by East German political prisoners. Oppose communism and receive a sentence assembling chairs and cupboards. This grim practice reportedly happened in the 70s and 80s, and the company didn't acknowledge the dark truth until 2012. Later, in 2022, reports emerged alleging that IKEA had indirectly used prisoners in Belarus. In 2016, KTVU reporter Alex Savage and his cameraman Chip Vaughn narrowly avoided being struck by a car in the San Francisco Bay Area while reporting live on a train derailment. During the live stream, a car was run off the road and careened towards them, but a quick shout from the cameraman and a last-second jump saved the day. Hawaii is one of the most beautiful places on Earth, though it has its creepy urban legends, just like anywhere else. The night marchers have reportedly been seen or heard around the island state. They have the power to kill you with a single look. But who are they? It's believed that the marchers are warriors moving between worlds. If you hear drums beating, it is your cue to get out of there. No, that's not a typo in that title. For years, Finnair operated Flight 666 to Helsinki, which uses the airport code HEL. But on Friday, October 13th, 2017, yes, Friday the 13th, the flight made its final journey. Thankfully for everybody on board, despite the eerie timing and those spooky superstitions, Flight AY666 touched down safely without any drama. Still, you have to admit, that final flight date, it's the kind of thing that gives you goosebumps. We've all gone a little stir-crazy on a railway journey. Yet the Victorians took this to a whole nother level, believing that the noises and the movements someone experiences on board could trigger dangerous impulses. By the way, if you saw me ranting and screaming on a train platform, don't worry, I didn't go insane. I just heard the price of a cup of coffee. In 2012, a political campaign took a bizarre turn when a Senate candidate, Barry Hinckley, decided to enlist his 5-year-old son, Hudson. The campaign ad featuring the adorable Hudson quickly went viral. But things got weird during a live interview on Fox News. While Hudson spoke about the national debt, his father silently mouthed every single word. Their bizarre pantomime left the host visibly shaken. When Hudson, bless his heart, innocently denied being worried about the debt, things got even worse. Cavuto pointed out the obvious discrepancy, which prompted a hurried explanation from Hinckley. The interview ended up becoming a surreal spectacle that left viewers questioning their sanity and Hinckley's judgment. There's a concrete bridge over San Antonio Creek in California that has a nasty surprise for drivers who stop on it. The Charman looks like he's taking a nap on a barbecue, and what's more, he's hostile to those who summon him. According to legend, calling for help from the bridge leads to the Charman coming at you from the local forest. Who is he? Some say he's a heartbroken and furious husband who had to listen to his poor wife dying in a fire. Have you ever seen Close Encounters of the Third Kind? If so, this might ring a bell. In 1945, 5 U.S. Navy planes disappeared over the Bermuda Triangle, sparking one of the most famous aviation mysteries ever. Flight 19, as it was called, lost communication during a training exercise, and no one could reach them after that. Naturally, a rescue mission was launched, with a Martin Mariner flying boat sent out to find them. But the rescue plane vanished too. Neither the missing planes nor any wreckage from Flight 19, or the rescue craft, was ever found. You probably already know that wearing your headphones too long is bad for your ears. But did you know that even an hour's headphone use can potentially affect ear health? That's the theory suggested in various studies, such as a 1992 investigation into airline headphones worn over the ear. Worryingly, the bacteria level went up 11 times within the space of a single hour. But no need to panic though. This is reportedly a low level, and we don't know if you can actually damage your hearing through overwearing earbuds and such. In 2015, a morning news broadcast took an eerie turn on Honduras' Televisa Primera Edición. While journalist Carlos Molina co-anchored the show, a glass of water inexplicably slid across the table in full view of the viewers. A stunned Carlos stopped the broadcast mid-sentence, pointing at the glass with a look of pure terror. He insisted the table was completely level, and there was no way it could have moved on its own. Theories flew like crazy. Some viewers thought it could have happened because of condensation, while others, especially those who claimed to see a flickering figure on the screens just before it moved, were convinced they saw a ghost. Here's one for the vegetarians. Pali Highway, located on the Hawaiian island of Oahu, is a place with a strange attitude toward pork. Let's say you're driving on the highway with a hot dog, or maybe even a freezer truck full of chops. Be careful, because you're stirring up ancient memories of an argument between the fiery goddess Pele and Kamapua'a, the hog child from mythology. Your vehicle will suddenly grind to a halt, and the only way out is to give your pork to a passing lady and her dog. In 1914, Henry Zieglin narrowly escaped death when his ex-girlfriend's brother shot him. Miraculously, the bullet only grazed Zieglin's face and lodged itself in a nearby tree. Believing he had killed Zieglin, the brother tragically took his own life. Fast forward to 1920, and Zieglin decided it was time to get rid of that tree, using dynamite. In a weird twist of fate, the explosion dislodged that very same bullet, and it struck Zieglin, killing him instantly. Despite the 6-year delay, fate finally caught up with him in the most bizarre way. Well, it wouldn't be a skin-crawling list without cockroaches, right? There are various ways of killing little creeps, but cutting off their heads, well, ain't one of them. Yes, a roach will keep on scuttling for a reported 9 days after decapitation. Why? Well, their brains aren't in their noggins. They're actually part of their bodies. Oof. In 2018, New York's entire skyline erupted in an electric blue glow, and several live streams captured the moment. I mean, it sounds like a scene from a sci-fi movie, right? 1 minute, it was a normal evening. The next, the city was bathed in an otherworldly light. Panic started to set in as people witnessed the sky pulsating with this eerie blue. The culprit? Not aliens, sorry, conspiracy theorists, but a much more down-to-earth explanation. A massive electrical malfunction. A fire erupted at a substation, causing transformers to explode and unleashing powerful electrical arcs that lit up the night sky. Massacre Rocks in Idaho is a creepy name for a state park, and as you can imagine, it has an urban legend to match. These underwater infants used to be human until they drowned in the Snake River. People have mentioned hearing their wails and cries from the water's edge. What are the odds? In 1953, 2 men named George D. Bryson made separate but simultaneous reservations at the Brown Palace Hotel in Denver, Colorado. Neither knew the other existed, but the hotel staff sure got confused. They kept misdirecting phone calls and messages meant for one George Bryson to the other. The strange mix-up eventually led to the 2 men meeting face to face. I wonder if they kept in touch after that. You have to assume so. Why would you not? When star Ashton Kutcher went to his then-girlfriend Ashley Elleren's home in February 2001, he expected her to be ready for their date. Reportedly, he wasn't on time, so surely she'd be there, and, less than happy. When no one answered, Kutcher looked in the window, seeing what he thought was a wine stain on the floor. He figured the date was off. What he didn't know was that Elleren had been brutally murdered by Michael Gargiulo, also known as the Hollywood Ripper. It wasn't a wine stain, it was blood. Gargiulo received a death sentence in 2021. In September 1985, astronomers from the University of Torun seized control of Poland's airwaves. Their weapon? A rigged ZX Spectrum computer. As the nation tuned in, expecting their usual evening broadcast, a bold message blazoned the screen. Enough price increases, lies, and repressions. Solidarity Torun. Similar messages infiltrated popular shows throughout the night, but their success was short-lived. Technical difficulties continued to cause interruptions, and they were arrested within hours. Spider-phobic people? Look away now. Have you ever been bitten by an 8-legged freak? If so, you're lucky to still be here. Did you know that there are certain spider bites that turn into bumps, and then those bumps can suddenly go pop? And when that happens, an army of spider babies shoots right out of your skin? This is one legend that puts the creepy into creepy crawly, though no evidence of it actually exists. Yet. While prepping for his role in The Girl from Petrovka, Anthony Hopkins scoured London bookstores for a copy of the novel, but came up empty. Then, strangely enough, he stumbled upon a copy left on a bench at a train station. But it gets weirder. Later, while chatting with George Pfeiffer, the author of the book, Hopkins found out that the copy he discovered wasn't just any old copy. It was Pfeiffer's own annotated version, which had been missing for years. Football and witchcraft don't mix. Unless you're an Australian football team desperate to get to the World Cup. Yes, Astonishingly, the Socceroos decided to visit Nyunga in Mozambique when they were told to play Rhodesia in 1969. They'd been told if they could curse the Rhodesian players, then the path would be clear to some sweet, sweet goals. For a short while, it was. Then the witch doctor asked for $1,000. The Aussies didn't pay up, so he reversed the curse. A few years later, they played at the World Cup, though there was a 30-year-plus gap till the next shot at glory. Coincidence? Or were there darker forces at play? A sudden moment in sports broadcasting can sometimes be better than the game itself. That's exactly what happened one Monday night in September 2016 when Sky Sports viewers were left spellbound by a ghostly visitor during Monday Night Football. While analysts Jamie Carragher and Phil Neville discussed the Sunderland-Everton match, a figure pushing a lawnmower appeared on the pitch behind them. The unidentified figure materialized twice, then vanished without explanation. Social media went nuts. Everyone was talking about the ghost haunting the stadium, and people are still waiting to spot the Sunderland ghost again. It's reassuring when your doggy pal gives you a lick, isn't it? But what if it wasn't your dog doing the licking at all? The subject of this legend was a girl who thought her beloved pet was licking her hand in the night. Actually, the licker was a human intruder hiding under the bed. She woke in the morning to find her dog brutally slaughtered and a mocking message left on her bathroom wall. James Dean's death in 1955 wasn't the end of the story for his Porsche 550 Spider, nicknamed Little Bastard. After the fatal crash, the car seemed to carry some bad luck with it. While being transported, it was involved in several accidents, injuring people and even causing another death. And it didn't stop there. Parts from the wreck were sold and installed in other cars, which ended up in more deadly accidents. As if that wasn't strange enough, the car mysteriously disappeared while being moved, adding another layer of creepiness to its already unsettling story. Size isn't everything, as the golden poison dart frog shows. Found in the Colombian rainforest, it would fit on your thumbnail. However, you really wouldn't want it there. You see, a touch from this toxic yellow creature will put you in the grave. A single golden poison frog, or Phyllobates terribilis, could potentially kill up to 15 people. So be careful, or you'll croak. You know how Orson Welles' infamous radio broadcast, The War of the Worlds, sparked mass panic? Well, Belgium faced something similar in 2006. RTBF, the French public broadcaster, aired a made-up news report that claimed that Flanders, the northern region, had declared independence. They even added images of jubilant crowds and grainy footage of the royal family supposedly fleeing to make it more believable. Panic ensued. Phone lines were overloaded, and embassies battled for answers. After a tense 30 minutes, RTBF revealed that it was a hoax designed to do nothing more than spark debate about Flemish independence ahead of elections. Could this Halloween be the one where everyone at an American university is viciously murdered by a man dressed as Little Bo Peep? Better known as the Halloween Massacre, it's a legend with some weird rules. For example, those universities whose names don't begin with M or W are safe. However, if you're unfortunate enough to be in the M and W category, and your university is near some water, a railroad, or a cemetery, then it's hasta la vista. Hey, I don't make the rules. It's one thing to find a beloved book in an old shop, but finding the exact same copy you owned as a kid? That's a whole new level of strange. In the early 20th century, American author Anne Parrish was browsing a bookshop in Paris when she came across Jack Frost and Other Stories, a book she adored as a child. She showed it to her husband, reminiscing about how much she loved it, only for him to point out something even more astonishing. Her name written inside the cover. Yep, it was the very same book she owned as a little girl. God knows why someone wanted to do a study to find out how many pubic hairs were in fast food, but I guess we're grateful to them? I mean, who knew you could even get them in your burger and fries? And I'm not talking about 1 or 2. You can swallow as many as 12 per year. And if that isn't an excuse to cut down on the junk food, then I don't know what is. Millions tuned in for Queen Elizabeth II's somber funeral in 2022, but during ITV's live broadcast, an eerie interruption caused a lot of raised eyebrows and WTFs. As the camera focused on the Queen's hearse, a disembodied voice whispered, "Death is irreversible. She's trapped," and cut off.
The death is irreversible, and the fact that she's trapped.
As you can see.
Social media exploded. Presenter Tom Bradby, visibly shaken, even paused his commentary. Many of those who heard it are convinced that the voice sounded a lot like that of the late Princess Diana. The Karapak lady is an urban legend from Singapore. A Karapak is a prawn cracker, which sounds delicious. What's less delicious is when Maki Keropok knocks on your door wanting you to buy some. It's best you pay up, because if you turn her away, she'll reportedly put a Pontianak in your home. And don't be some wise guy and think, that's okay, I love cars. It's not Pontiac. A Pontianak is actually a vampire ghost that'll probably haunt you to death. Sometimes the right timing feels almost too perfect to be just chance. On March 1st, 1950, the Westside Baptist Church in Beatrice, Nebraska experienced a near catastrophe. The church's preacher had fired up the furnace to warm the building for choir rehearsal, but he was running late because he had to help his daughter with her outfit. Oddly enough, every single member of the 15-person choir was late that evening, for reasons ranging from car trouble to a math assignment, and even just feeling a little lazy. Their delay ended up saving their lives. At the exact time the rehearsal was supposed to start, the church exploded due to a furnace malfunction. If they had all been there on time, none of them would have survived. Sloths are weird-looking creatures, but they're also really cute. I mean, I could live without those fearsome-looking talons on the end of their paws, of course. I'm sorry, what's that? They're not talons? They're its friggin' finger bones? Oh. Cancel my trip to the zoo. I need to lie down to get over the creepiness. Oh no. On September 6th, 1987, fans tuning into the Playboy channel for the Three Daughters movie got a whole lot more than they expected. Instead of their late-night entertainment, a text message flashed on the screen quoting Bible verses from Exodus and Matthew. Thus saith the Lord thy God, remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. Repent, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Investigators traced the technical fingerprints in the transmission back to CBN equipment and one Thomas Haney, an employee of the Christian Broadcasting Network. Haney was convicted on 2 counts related to the interference and sentenced to 3 years of probation, a $1,000 fine, and 150 hours of community service. Luana's Canyon in Arizona is better known by another name, Slaughterhouse Canyon. If you hear screaming coming from this desolate place, then be afraid. They could be the screams of a 19th century family. When the father disappeared, his wife and children starved to death. The suffering children were murdered in a mercy killing by their own mother, who went on to kill herself. They live on in a weird way through the ghostly screams. It sounds unbelievable, but between 2000 and 2012 in the Philippines, singing Frank Sinatra's My Way at karaoke could get you killed. Literally. 6 people died after having a go at the old-time favorite. The first incident was odd. The second, downright bizarre. But by the third, people didn't hesitate to call it more than just a coincidence. Whether it was off-key singing that sparked arguments or the song's bold lyrics rubbing people the wrong way, My Way just seemed to set people off. It got so bad that many karaoke bars ended up removing the song from their playlists to avoid more tragedy. I wonder about the Limp Bizkit song, My Way. I'm sorry, bees have what now? Hairy eyes are creepy, but they actually serve a useful purpose. They work as extra pollen collectors, ensuring the bee grabs as much of the good stuff as it can. These insects are covered in hair anyway, getting pollen on their bodies and legs, so it makes sense they have it on their eyes too. In 1956, a man named Samuel J. Seymour made television history. At 95, he became one of the oldest people to appear on a game show, but it wasn't just his age that had viewers glued to their seats. Seymour's secret, slowly revealed on a program called I've Got a Secret, showed that he was the last living link to one of America's darkest moments, the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln. With a nervous chuckle, Seymour recounted witnessing the event at Ford's Theater in 1865 when he was just 5 years old. As the weight of his words sank in, host Gary Moore presented a newspaper article from that very year corroborating Seymour's story. A cemetery in Indiana features more than tombstones and grieving people. The Cloverland Cemetery in Clay County dates back to the Civil War and is on a hill. Walk up its steps and you'll reportedly see the old caretaker's ghost. The ghost shows you how you're going to die, but there is a way out of it. Go back down the steps, making sure you count each one. As long as there are 100 steps, you'll be fine. If not, the caretaker's grim prediction is coming true. Meteors are rare enough as it is, with the odds being struck by one sitting at around 1 in 1.6 million. But in 2011, a meteoroid made its way through Earth's atmosphere and crashed into a house in France. Thankfully, no one was hurt. But here's the kicker. The house belonged to the Comet family. I kid you not. A meteor struck a family named Comet. Not the family, but their house. Some poor kid had a tooth growing out of his foot. In 1977, 13-year-old Doug Pritchard was diagnosed with a genetically incorrect chomper, which had grown inside his left foot. The tooth was finally extracted, leaving Doug free of the agonizing pain he'd suffered. It's not the first thing you'd think of when you have a painful foot, but then this is one crazy, creepy world we live in. And you know what else is pretty creepy? The fact that you haven't liked, shared, commented, or subscribed yet. Don't ask me how that's creepy. I'm just making it work. So be sure to do all that because it actually totally helps the channel. And check out our social medias. Trust me. If you've ever wondered just how far TV personalities will go for ratings, well, I have the answer. Pretty damn far. In 2012, a Dutch game show called Poefkoningen, or Guinea Pigs, took a stomach-churning turn. Known for pushing boundaries, hosts Dennis Storm and Valerio Zeno underwent surgery to remove pieces of their own flesh. The meat was frozen and thawed to be consumed during the live broadcast. Yeah, they had a chef cook and serve it to them. The hosts, eerily calm, even took bites. Their stunt sparked considerable outrage, causing many to debate how ethical pushing boundaries is in live broadcasts. And you know what? You've made it this far, so why not like, share, comment, and subscribe? I mean, it really helps the channel so we can keep making amazing content for you. And don't forget to check out our socials. If you thought that Friday the 13th movie where Jason went to Manhattan was silly, well, then think again. There's a 1970s urban legend about a hook-handed killer on New York's Staten Island named Cropsey. This grieving father-turned-slasher chased kids in the woods. He'd lost his son, and so he wanted these poor souls to join him instead. Stephen Hawking was one of the greatest minds of the 20th and 21st centuries, building on the work of legendary scientists like Galileo and Einstein. But there's an odd connection that ties these three figures together. Hawking was born on the 300th anniversary of Galileo's death. Not only that, but he died on Einstein's birthday. It almost feels like these brilliant minds who expanded our understanding of time, space, and everything in between were linked by the universe itself. As well as being scary as heck, no they're not. Tarantulas are among the toughest eight-legged freaks in the game. They need water to survive, yet food isn't something they really rely on due to their low metabolism. Reportedly, a tarantula can do without solids for up to 2 years. Unfortunately, if you're trapped in a room with a tarantula and you're waiting for it to die, you may be kicking the bucket before the spider. Come on, tarantulas are cool. They're not creepy. I've held them. They're really neat. They're just hairy spiders. They're adorable. They're big hairy spiders. What's so creepy about that? A warlord who shoots people in the face. What's so scary about that? References. In March 1985, days before the iconic WrestleMania 1, Hulk Hogan and Mr. T appeared on Richard Belzer's Hot Properties. The studio was chock full of children. During the interview, Hogan put Belzer in a front shin lock, but the stunt backfired. Belzer went limp, and the audience watched in horror as he hit the floor head first. With blood trickling, Belzer, remarkably composed upon waking, salvaged the broadcast and took them to break. He did not return and was taken for medical attention, which included a bunch of stitches. Belzer eventually ended up suing Hogan for millions, and WrestleMania went on to become legendary. This creepy-looking little character was supposedly involved in the life of Antoine de la Mothe Cadillac, the founder of Detroit in the early 18th century, and the guy they named the car after. Translating as Red Dwarf, the Nain Rouge was reportedly struck by Cadillac's cane as he got in the way of him and his wife. Bad news for Mr. Cadillac. He'd previously been warned by a fortune teller not to get on the wrong side of the Nain Rouge. Cadillac experienced a lot of misfortune after that day. Robert Todd Lincoln, the only Lincoln child to outlive both of his parents, had a long and distinguished career, but it almost didn't happen. One day, while waiting for a train in New Jersey, Lincoln lost his balance and fell onto the tracks. Just in the nick of time, a passerby grabbed him and pulled him back onto the platform, saving his life. Oddly enough, that good Samaritan was Edwin Booth, brother of John Wilkes Booth, the man who would later assassinate Abraham Lincoln. To make things even stranger, Lincoln was there when Presidents McKinley and Garfield were assassinated too. A baby with a little mustache sounds kind of cute. I like that baby from Addams Family. Of course, this particular mustache wouldn't look out of place in those movies. Why? Well, because it's a living mustache called a lanugo that grows to cover their bodies, turning your little miracle into a little werewolf for a limited period. It's a built-in fur coat, providing warmth for the baby before falling out prior to leaving the womb. Altogether ooky. At the end of the turbulent 60s, the Vietnam War cast a long shadow over America. It wasn't just the nightly news reports or the distant rumble of conflict. It was a constant gnawing fear that slithered into everyday life. Then, in December 1969, a new terror crept in. the draft lottery. A morbid lottery played live on television. Millions of men across the country tuned in, a collective dread gripping them as the announcer's voice echoed through their living rooms. Over 2.2 million would be called. Thousands would never return. Vampires are real, at least according to this shocking urban legend from New Orleans in the 1930s. Dock workers John and Wayne Carter were found to be keeping people captive in their homes and using them to drink their blood. When the horror was revealed, they actually told authorities they were members of the undead. The Carter brothers received a death sentence, though somehow I don't think that they were killed with garlic and wooden stakes. Life magazine was a huge part of American culture in the 20th century, filling shelves and waiting rooms everywhere. Its very first edition, released on November 23, 1936, featured a newborn baby in its first interior photo with the caption, "Life Begins." That baby was George Story, who would grow up to become a journalist. And here's where the story takes an odd turn. On April 4th, 2000, Life magazine announced it was shutting down for good. Just a few days later, Story passed away from heart failure. The anglerfish looks creepy, and it behaves creepy also. Not content with subjugating a female to a mating session with its ugly mug, the male then fuses its body onto that of its sexual partner. Anglerfish literally mate for life, with the male eventually becoming like a third arm. Their third fin? In 2016, a routine interview at Copenhagen Airport took a decidedly creepy turn. A TV2 SportsCenter reporter was chatting with a passenger while the luggage carousels rolled on behind them. In the background, a woman with a bright pink suitcase stood waiting. One moment she was there, the next, nothing. She was gone, vanished into thin air. The footage, captured by the rolling camera, showed no cuts or edits, and the reporter, oblivious to the unfolding mystery, continued the interview. Online, the clip went viral. It might have been nothing more than a well-timed body blocked by another passenger or a lighting anomaly, but it ended up firmly in the realm of the conspiracy theorists. The bridge on Clinton Road in Passaic County, New Jersey, has an urban legend where if you don't believe it, you get your money back. What do I mean? Well, apparently the spirit of a boy lives under one of the bridges there. He's creepy, but also helpful. Should you throw money over the bridge, he will come out and give it back to you. No thanks, buddy, just keep the change. Maarten de Junge, a Dutch cyclist, might not be a household name or famous for his racing career, but he is very familiar with creepy coincidences. In 2014, he came dangerously close to being on not one, but two doomed Malaysia Airlines flights. First, he was set to board Flight 370, which mysteriously disappeared, but changed his plans at the last minute. Then, he booked a seat on Flight 17, which was tragically shot down over Ukraine. Again, he switched flights just before takeoff to save money. You can't make this stuff up. He dodged two tragedies by a hair. How does your garden grow? Well, in your lungs if you're not careful. There's a recorded case of a pine tree being discovered in somebody's body back in 2009. And if you're surprised, imagine how the doctors felt when they opened him up expecting to see a tumor. This creepy situation happened in the Russian mountains, where it's thought the poor guy inadvertently swallowed a seed. In the bizarre world of YouTube performance art, Benjamin Bennett reigns supreme. Since 2014, he's captivated, and creeped out, audiences with his Sitting and Smiling series. The concept is simple. Bennett sits, smiles, and stares for 4 hours straight. No talking, no fidgeting. Just a grin that stretches across his face like a weird carnival mask. His minimalist marathons have racked up over 31 million views and a dedicated fan base, or maybe a cult following. But what exactly is Bennett trying to achieve? Is art a social experiment gone wrong? The silence is deafening, and the lack of explanation only adds to the creepiness. The Bermuda Triangle isn't the only creepy triangle on the planet. Oklahoma's Beaver Dunes Park is the location of a crazy urban legend with a sci-fi flavor. Ever since the 1500s, people have been disappearing there. So the story goes. Is it an ancient portal? A UFO site? Who knows? If you're out there and you notice the famous green lighting, then best shift your sandy butt pronto. The 1976 horror classic The Omen didn't just terrify audiences, it felt cursed behind the scenes too. From the start, strange and unsettling incidents plagued the cast and crew. Gregory Peck, the film's lead, had his plane struck by lightning while flying to the set. In a bizarre twist, the planes of producer Mace Newfield and writer David Seltzer were also struck by lightning on separate occasions. Even more terrifying, Peck narrowly avoided disaster when he canceled a flight that later crashed, killing everyone on board. Then, special effects supervisor John Richardson and his assistant Liz Moore were involved in a car accident that mirrored one of the film's most gruesome scenes. Moore was tragically decapitated, similar to a character's death in the movie. And as if that wasn't enough, an animal handler working on the film's baboons was killed by a tiger the day after filming wrapped. With so many creepy incidents, it's easy to see why people believe The Omen was cursed. Sleepwalking is pretty harmless, isn't it? Well, it turns out you can actually kill someone in your sleep. Homicidal somnambulism is the technical term, and tragically it happened in 2005 when a man in Great Britain attacked and killed his father whilst unconscious and under the influence of alcohol. Later in 2024, a boy claimed he was asleep when he was violent to fellow students and a staff member at his boarding school. The boy was found guilty of attempted murder, but that man who attacked his father was cleared. In 2014, Nikki Elise, better known to her fans as Sajidine, was streaming her usual game of Dota 2 from her Arizona home. Everything seemed normal, until it wasn't. Shouts and commotion erupted from another room, pulling Nikki's attention away from the game. Without a moment's hesitation, she vanished from the camera's view. The silence that followed was deafening. Then, terrifying commands pierced the air. "On the ground now! Don't move!" They ransacked the place before one of the figures plunged the room into darkness. The webcam flickered and died, leaving viewers in a horrifying silence. The entire ordeal, a dreadful glimpse into a real-life nightmare, was later circulated online. Named for its creepy pink eyes, this humanoid monster is an urban legend and a threat to young women in South Africa. The really unnerving thing about this one is you can't look it directly in the face. Like in a horror movie, it blurs itself, meaning while you can tell it's ugly, you'll never quite make it out. I mean, depending on how you look at it, it could be a blessing, but you still have to look into those scary eyes. On the evening of September 29, 1888, Catherine Eddowes was arrested in London for public intoxication. While being held, she gave the police a false name, Mary Kelly. Little did she know, both of those names would go down in serial killer history. After being released from custody, Eddowes became the second-to-last victim of Jack the Ripper. Her body was brutally mutilated, and then, just weeks later, the Ripper's last victim would be none other than Mary Kelly, the exact same name Eddowes had used while in police custody. One of the creepiest things imaginable is the idea of a stranger watching you while you sleep. So, allow me to make things even creepier with the news that your body is actually aware of this happening. People have put this down to ESP, or extrasensory perception. Your brain is tuned into anything that might be harmful, such as someone coming up behind you, and the instinct doesn't appear to go away just because you're unconscious. In 2018, a tower camera from WITI in Milwaukee captured a mysterious sight that went viral online. At around 4:43 a.m., viewers saw an unusual object moving across the sky. As the clip made it to the internet, everyone was sure we had finally convincing footage of aliens. Although WITI initially explained the UFO's movements as seagulls, keen-eyed viewers noted that they didn't match the graceful glide of a seagull. The video took flight on forums like Reddit, shared by everyone from weather nerds to stargazers. And to add fuel to the fire, WITI's cameras caught something similar the very next morning. Egyptian children who are badly behaved may find themselves at the mercy of Abu Rajul Masluka. This is a frightening figure who's known for having one burnt leg. He's a boogeyman type who's only too happy to torment little ones who don't follow the rules. Joseph Ainer, an Australian painter, struggled with life and tried to end it all. Twice. First at the age of 18 and again at 22. But on both occasions, a Capuchin monk showed up out of nowhere and stopped him. By the time Ainer turned 30, he was sentenced to death for his political activities. And once again, that same mysterious monk stepped in and saved his life. Ainer eventually found fame as an artist, but at 68, he finally succeeded in taking his own life. And you guessed it, the same monk, whose name Ainer never learned, ended up officiating his funeral. CNN has only been broadcasting since 1980. I mean, how surprising is that? What's even more surprising is how apocalyptic they are. What do I mean? Well, this seemingly straight-laced news organization was prepping like pros when they made their on-air debut. Somewhere in the CNN vault is a special rendition of the hymn, "Nearer My God to Thee." This is to be played when it looks like the world is about to end. In 2017, a seemingly innocent Facebook Live video captured a young woman's death. Nicole Barabasova, in her early 20s, filmed from the passenger seat of a Volkswagen speeding through Obranitz, Czech Republic. Her laughter filled the car as the camera captured the blur of the passing landscape, but her laughter turned into a terrified yelp as the car collided with a barrier. The camera kept rolling for the viewers, showing the chaos inside as the car flipped over. It continued to capture the eerie silence after the crash, broken only by the relentless sound of the windshield wipers. Emergency responders eventually arrived, but it was too late. Nicole did not survive the crash. Smell something funky? Maybe with a hint of banana? Then you might be in the presence of the skunk ape from America's southeastern states. It's been compared to an orangutan and also a bear, so clearly a fearsome beast. Others think it's like the legendary Sasquatch. You'll potentially find it in forests and swamps. And if you watch Expedition X, they literally just did an episode on it last week, at the time of this filming. In 1937, Detroit's sweet streeper Joseph Figlock became an accidental hero in the most unconventional way. While he was working, a baby fell from a fourth-story window and landed right on him. Figlock managed to break the baby's fall, and both survived the incident. A year later, Figlock was out sweeping again when another child, a 2-year-old this time, fell from above and landed on him. Figlock somehow found himself in the perfect place not once, but twice when it mattered the most. In 2013, an icky and creepy fact emerged about our feline friends. Their feces carry a parasite called Toxoplasma gondii. Now, we all like a good snuggle with our kitties, but if we accidentally transfer this parasite to our mouths, we become infected. Not so bad for us due to our immune system, however, mice and rats are really in trouble. In trouble because the parasite appears to take over the brain and draw them toward cats. And also in a big doo-doo because cats see rodents as a warm meal. The prey makes it easy for them. Meals on squeals, you could say. If you've seen the Hulu documentary The Contestant, well, you'll be familiar with the haunting story of Japanese comedian Tomoaki Hamatsu, known as Nasubi, who found himself in the middle of a twisted reality TV stunt in the late 90s. Nasubi took part in Susumu Denpa Shonen, where he was pushed into a brutal challenge called A Life in Prizes. The premise was cruelly simple. Confined to a small apartment, Nasubi had to survive solely on winnings from magazine sweepstakes until he reached 1 million yen. What followed was brutal. From eating dog food to enduring malnourishment and psychological torment, every moment of Nasubi's struggle was manipulated into televised entertainment. Producers had no qualms with blurring the lines between torture and reality TV, all under the guise of entertainment. Cat fans may not feel the same about their beloved furballs after hearing this legend. You can reportedly find a whole bunch of ghost cats in Jerome, a town in Arizona that's been deserted for years. One of the undead felines is said to be the pet of a deceased brothel owner. Before Adolf Hitler became one of history's most notorious figures, he actually had ambitions to be a painter. Even though he eventually gave up on his artistic dreams, his passion for the arts never really left him. One of his favorite pieces was The Wild Chase by Franz von Stuck, a dark and ominous painting. The coincidence? Von Stuck completed the painting in 1889, the year Hitler was born. The Wild Chase shows the Germanic god Wotan leading a wild hunt followed by an army of the dead. Due to the parallels between Wotan and Hitler, many believe this painting in fact predicted Hitler's dark future and the devastation he would bring. Take a hit from the bong. This PSA brought to you by, well, maybe not this bong. After all, it is a human skull. In 2008, 3 young stoners thought it'd be a great idea to dig up somebody's bony noggin and inhale drugs through it. That sounds like a scene from some crazy teen comedy. However, the edge is taken off when you learn that the skull reportedly belonged to a dead child from the 1920s. Was that supposed to make it better? Was the edge taken off now? What? In 2020, the internet was thrown into a frenzy when then UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's budget briefcase underwent a magical color change during a live TV broadcast. The peculiar incident was captured by Sky News as Sunak walked along the pavement holding the folder in his right hand. Initially red, the briefcase mysteriously transformed to green as Sunak passed behind a parked car. The perplexing moment quickly went viral, prompting a flurry of tweets and comments. Owen Jones, among others, voiced the collective bewilderment, tweeting, "Unless someone can convincingly explain why his folder suddenly changes color, none of us will ever truly be at peace." Unfortunately for us, this particular urban legend is real. The idea that swarms of rats are going to attack us through the toilet bowl is pretty stupid. However, a rodent is capable of squeezing itself up the pipe as you're squeezing, well, you know. Poop is unpleasant, but it's also a source of undigested food. So if you're taking care of business and you hear a scuttling noise, don't ignore it. It could be all that stands between you and expensive reconstructive surgery. The 27 Club is a name given to a group of famous musicians, actors, and artists who all died at the age of 27. It started in the late 60s, when we lost legends like Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison from The Doors, and Brian Jones of the Rolling Stones. In the 90s, Kurt Cobain took his life at 27, followed by Amy Winehouse, who passed from complications tied to drug use at 27. What's even spookier is that Amy Winehouse once admitted she was afraid of dying at that exact age. With more than 60 celebrities joining since the early 20th century, the 27 Club is just about the definition of a creepy coincidence. What's that on your tongue? A face? Looks like you've been hit by Cymothera exigua, the parasite that not only targets your tongue, but eats and replaces it too. Thankfully, only fish are the victims of this creature, though it is better to be safe than sorry, and keep your mouth closed if you're ever swimming in Mexico or Central America. On June 17, 2007, Czech television's usual peaceful Sunday morning broadcast took an unexpected turn during the Panorama program, known for its scenic shots of Černý Důl and Krkonoše and other beautiful spots. On that day, a live camera feed from Černý Důl and Krkonoše, usually showing picturesque landscapes, was hijacked by a group of hackers who, instead of the usual views, added a CGI depiction of a small nuclear explosion to the feed. They even went so far as to add white noise to their hack, leaving the poor viewers in a state of shock. The incident sparked a lot of anger and prompted Czech television to take legal action against the perpetrators. Another urban legend that's also a true story concerns a lawyer with a reckless streak that got him killed. Gary Hoy of Toronto was known for testing the strength of the windows in his office. While this sounds insane, it's completely accurate. He'd take a run at the window and collide with it, safe in the knowledge he would bounce off the glass. In 1993, the window pane fell out and it was case dismissed for Gary. Tsutomu Yamaguchi, a draftsman working for Mitsubishi, experienced not just one, but 2 atomic bombings in 1945. And he lived to tell the tale. On a business trip to Hiroshima on August 6th, he watched in horror as the US dropped the first atomic bomb. Despite being seriously burned, Yamaguchi and his colleagues managed to survive by taking shelter. The next day, he returned home to Nagasaki. In all honesty, he probably thought the worst moment of his life was behind him. Then, incredibly, while he was at work 3 days later, the second bomb hit Nagasaki. Again, Yamaguchi survived, although he suffered from radiation sickness and a fever for a week. Remarkably, he lived to the ripe old age of 93 and passed away in 2010. These operations aren't as straightforward as you might think. It isn't a case of one out and one in. Your defective kidney often stays where it is, with the healthy organ slotted into your body as a life-saving bonus. It's a little creepy to think about, but worth it to stay alive, of course. Back in 2017, a couple appeared on ITV's This Morning to share their eerie experiences after purchasing a China doll from a thrift shop. During the interview, the woman admitted, "I don't even want to touch the doll," while her husband revealed that he had mysteriously received scratches on his arms and legs. To make things even creepier, their fire alarm would go off without any reason. The hosts were skeptical, but viewers at home noticed something unsettling. The doll started to rock in its chair all on its own. A few weeks later, the doll made another appearance on the show with her new owner, who suffered from, you guessed it, fire alarms and a host of unexplainable scratches and bruises. This crazed individual is an urban legend with some basis in reality. The fictional part is that there was a psychologically unbalanced person who enjoyed murdering rabbits and then hanging them from bridges. I guess they got bored with that because they then moved on to gutting and hanging teenagers. In real life, eyewitnesses in Virginia reported someone carrying a hatchet and wearing a bunny-type outfit. Though, I'm not sure which version is scarier. What about you? At number 1 on today's unforgettable list is a powerful yet bizarre coincidence from World War I. John Parr, the first British soldier to die in the war, and George Edwin Elson, the last, were buried just 7 yards apart, with their graves facing each other in St. Symphorien Military Cemetery. At the time of their burials, no one knew they were the first and last British casualties, so their graves weren't positioned with that in mind. The cemetery, established by the German army, even holds soldiers from both sides of the conflict, which I think makes their proximity even more symbolic in hindsight. Today, their graves stand as silent sentinels, marking both the beginning and the end of Britain's tragic role in the war, underscoring the heavy toll of the conflict on all the lives it touched. Just because you're dead doesn't mean you don't get aroused. Rigor erectus, also known as the death erection, has been noted in victims of hanging. The pressure on the brain and spinal cord results in a bizarre yet horrifying reaction down below. It's a grim version of what's known in medical circles as a priapism, where blood doesn't flow to the penis like it should. Just recently, in 2024, a man in the Philippines had a late-night bike ride that took a terrifying turn. On March 2nd, Carl Dagas and his friends rode their bikes home from a friend's house when they encountered something bizarre. A ghostly figure suddenly darted past Carl's bike, seemingly colliding with it before disappearing into the thin air. A ghostly figure suddenly darted past Carl's bike, seemingly colliding with it before disappearing into thin air. Despite the obvious collision, no pedestrian could be found. Adding to the mystery, when they reviewed the footage later, they noticed that the figure had no identifiable face. Given these strange details, Carl couldn't help but suspect that he had actually encountered a ghost, and people are agreeing with him. To date, nobody has come forward to identify themselves as the mysterious figure, and authorities haven't confirmed any reports of a person being hit by a bike at the scene. Here's a spooky story with an old school vibe. It's based on a made-up arcade game called Polybius, which reportedly had strange psychological effects on the people who played it. Someone even took their own life. In an even stranger twist, the game is rumored to have links to the CIA, who may have used it as part of a crazy experiment.